I don't know if I'm going to do this out of order here, but we'll start with Georgia, South Carolina, because I'm excited to watch it. Seth, is there any grab ass potential here?
So the game that South Carolina fans are kind of hanging their hat on here is the 2019 game when they came here and pulled off the upset. Kind of forgets that they've been here since then. 2021 was not close. But this South Carolina team is probably better than their 2019 team. And this is going to sound sacrilege, we're not sure yet that this Georgia team is better than its 2019 team, which otherwise was unbeaten in the regular season and whose only other loss was to Joe Burrow and company in the SEC championship. So there's always a chance, but that game in 2019 was that dreaded noon game. South Carolina was not good, so you definitely had the overlooking factor. This one's the CBS 3:30 game. Kirby has done one of his good gimmicky, take something very innocuous said or done by the other team and twist it into something motivational. Was talking to Hemingway of South Carolina. He was asked at SEC Media Days, what are the loudest environments you played in? And he thought quickly, said, Tennessee and Texas A&M. And Kirby said, well, sounds like he disrespected Georgia. Like, no,
there's a lot of that going around these days, Seth.
Yeah. So
isn't it just the truth, though?
That's this year's. They're picking us to go 7-5. So I think there's going to be a big road atmosphere. 28 points, I guess 27.5 or whatever you find the line, may seem like a high number until you say, well, let's say Georgia wins this game 45-14, which, that's a seemingly, or 38-7, something like that, which is in line with what their first two wins were. And they were kind of playing a little grab ass in those games, especially in the first quarter before they just kind of said, oh, okay, all right, here we go. So yeah, I would take the points.
Yeah, I think to me it comes down to I don't think South Carolina's going to be able to score more than 10 or 14. I have concerns about their ability to block anything. But I think I'm also very skeptical that Georgia's just gonna sort of wake up and score 40. I like the points here. I could see it being more like a 31-10 type of situation where Georgia's never really threatened. But man, South Carolina is competent, and we don't know that Georgia's a beast yet. So 27.5, that's a lot of points. So give me South Carolina and the points in this one.
Are we sure that South Carolina is going to score points in this game?
They'll score some, Ari. They're not going to get shut out. I have a lot of questions about their ability to block, but they have too much talent offensively to just not be able to score a point. So, yes. But I will say,
I know Jalen Carter's not on Georgia's.
Allergic. They seem allergic to Georgia's physicality the last couple of years. It's been rough.
I don't know if Jalen Carter is walking through the door at Georgia, but I certainly think uncertain of whether or not they're going to be able to block, and Georgia's defensive line is kind of a pretty terrible combo for anybody who wants to run functional offense. I think that South Carolina last year pulled one of the most impressive games of the year with what they did at Tennessee. And I think there's this notion or just thought process that, that they're going to be able to keep this close on the road. And I even kind of fell for that thought process when I submitted the picks that we made on the website this week. But I actually, the more I think about this game and, hearing people talk about it, like I think that Georgia is just going to steamroll them. And I think that'll be good for the SEC. I think that'll be good to kind of see whether or not we're dealing with a team in Georgia that is actually equipped to potentially win 3 in a row. And, we're kind of on different sides of this, but Seth, just while you're here, from what you've been seeing, the games that you've watched being around the program, obviously, like, is this Georgia team a team that you think can do that, or are you still kind of like on wait and see mode?
A little bit wait and see, but I do kind of think that if you told me this will be a higher scoring blowout versus a 31-0 kind of game, I'd take the higher scoring one. I think Georgia secondary is really good. Their pass rush, like they don't play the kind of way that they even try to get 9 sacks. And people don't play that way against Georgia. They try to get the ball out quickly. But their run defense, kind of, that's been my wonder about them. And I don't think we've really learned anything yet, especially the first two opponents they played. I think offensively, they haven't given the ball to Brock Bowers much intentionally. And they're getting a little healthier on that side of the ball. They should have Dijon Edwards back, who was their leading returning rusher. He hasn't played the first two games. I don't think they'll have Ladd McConkey back. He hasn't played the first two games. But I would expect they'll get the ball to Brock Bowers a little bit more and probably put up a lot of points. Unless, the other thing is you've got the Beamer ball effect, and there's always seems like one crazy special teams play that goes South Carolina's way.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see. I'm just like more curious than anything to see if like Georgia's just going to be the huge monster on everybody's schedule that just can't be beaten this year, or if, we have another team that's susceptible to potentially not being as good as we've come to expect them to be. And obviously they've lost a lot of, playmaking production, I should say, from last year's team. And, it's hard to be that great every year, but what we expect from Georgia and the talent that they've accumulated is that they will be that. But college football would be weird if we had a less than peak version of Georgia. We have a team in LSU that's already lost and Alabama already losing. It just seems like I'm just waiting to see if Georgia's going to carry the banner for the entire SEC this year, or if this is just going to be an entire year of who's going to be the new kid on the block that actually gets something done.
You won't know that about Georgia for a while. I mean, if they throttle South Carolina, so what? If they throttle UAB, so what? Auburn didn't look great. Maybe they're rounding into form. But if they go and throttle Auburn on the Plains, if they do it to Vanderbilt and Kentucky and Florida, like I keep everybody seemingly they have on their schedule has kind of just not looked very good. And Tennessee is still that game, and we'll get to them in a little bit. I did have a thought on how that is shaping up, the Georgia-Tennessee question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it does seem interesting too that just like Georgia doesn't play a ranked team till November, and that's kind of a hard situation to be in as a beat writer. I've covered some teams too that are 27-point favorites every week, and it's just really hard to contextualize what that team is capable of when you don't have worthy opponents. So, but I do think Catherine B made the point here in the chat that if the game is close, then maybe that tells you something more so than a blowout would. So it's kind of a lose-lose for Georgia. But I would like to see Georgia take command. You don't have to beat great teams or have some sort of top 5 win at the beginning of the year to have that look about you, in my opinion. Like, you can tell when somebody's about that life, and I'm very curious to see what it looks like if Georgia's clicking on all cylinders again, because winning 3 in a row is tough, and it kind of feels like right now that of all the teams in the SEC as a week 3 overreaction, that Georgia seems to be the best candidate to potentially win the championship, especially with 2 of the other teams that would have been in that discussion already having suffered losses.